All right, it is time to get started here. Thank you for joining us today for our Workplace Excellence webinar. My name is Erin Kopek, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for Extra Help. You have joined Extra Help's Workplace webinar entitled Changing Landscapes, Effective Marketing Strategies in a New Economy. Today our presenter is Martha Kampen, and she'll be introduced momentarily. The Workplace Excellence webinar is an exciting new program for Extra Help clients and colleagues to manage workforce changes. So let's get started. Today our presenter is Martha Garcia Kampen of Kampen Consulting. Martha Garcia Kampen is founding partner of the marketing management firm Kampen Consultants, LLC, specializing in strategic marketing planning for emerging companies since 1988. Her 30 years of management experience ranges from sales, product management, and market research to strategic marketing planning. She has consulted hundreds of businesses and nonprofit organizations throughout the U.S. in a variety of industries, having presented to national organizations in the U.S., Mexico, and Hawaii. Today, Martha presents effective marketing strategies in a new economy. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Martha.
Okay, thank you, Erin. This is Martha Garcia Kampen, and it's my pleasure to present to you what I hope will become some fresh ideas for marketing in today's economy. I will provide you with several strategic approaches which should be relevant to you as a business owner and as a market leader. We have a new economy upon us, and it's going to take some new strategies. So that's what this presentation is about, and I really hope that you'll get some new ideas. So let's get started. So how many of you think that we're still in an economic recession? We are now well aware of the Great Recession, which some experts will claim began as early as 2004, and most will agree will hit us hard in 2008. Some will say we're out of the recession, but most of my clients agree that we're in what we call, or what I like to call, the new economy. The marketing strategies that worked pre-2008 just don't work anymore. People have shifted their mindset and ultimately their purchasing behaviors in response to their own economic pressures. No secret, we've all experienced it. Small business has not only taken the hit the hardest, but we've also had to figure out how to keep our customers and win new customers through this emerging new economy. So let's look at some ways that our customers have changed. Many of you, I'm sure, are going to be familiar with some of these, but let's take a look at it. More of our customers are cost or value driven. How many of you are now using more coupons, deals, special promotions with your customers? It's almost as if they don't want to purchase unless there is a deal. There is some kind of discount, some kind of value driven. Most purchases are being made online. It makes us wonder what the future of brick and mortar is, but there's several stats here. 85% of the online population have shopped or purchased off of an online website. 33% have used online coupons, which is a new phenomenon in the last decade, really the last 5 years or so. And then let's not forget increasing mobile applications. Mobile e-com has grown 7 times faster than retail. So that's something we definitely need to keep our eyes on and utilize if it works for our type of business. More of our customers are convenience-oriented. They don't want to spend much time to complete their purchase. So again, that's why we're online. That's why we're working or shopping through the internet. It's more convenient. We can do it 24/7. More customers are relying on social media for recommendations and product endorsements from their friends. Facebook. How many times have you seen, or maybe on your Facebook page, do you provide testimonials from customers about your products, about your services? Or I've seen where my friends are asking, hey, does anybody have a recommendation for a good place to go get a massage? And there's lots of Facebook time. There's Pinterest, there's Instagram, there's lots of different ways that we're connecting online. Another change I think that's happened is that we all expect great customer service. Now this differs or looks different by generation and by product type, but in general we're expecting great service, and that goes for the purchases we make online too. We want an easy, no-hassle return policy. What about product loyalty? Well, we used to really work hard to get some product loyalty built up for our business, for our service, our brand. That's nearly non-existent now. There are some ways to reestablish this, though, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. And it kind of depends and it differs based on generations and based on cultural groups that we're targeting. Green is the new black. We're very ecologically oriented now. Cause marketing is the new chic. In fact, I would say it's really a necessity. It's something that we're needing to be sure that we provide a community-conscious experience for our customers. So let's take a look at economic growth and where it's coming from. Well, I think it will not come from traditional markets, traditional mediums, all-encompassing messages, or from large corporations. So where will our growth come from? I would propose that it's going to come from baby boomers and the silent generation, which we'll talk about in just a bit. I think also millennials are a great new market for us to keep an eye on. Hispanic Americans, a cultural group that we need to be looking at as good customers. Asian Americans are also a growing group of people that have some very similar values that we need to be paying attention to. What about immigrants? We have many new immigrants in our country, and we need to address their needs as well. Growth is also going to come from, instead of the large corporations, I believe it's going to be coming from entrepreneurs, small businesses, and what I like to call nimble companies. Nimble companies are companies that can respond quickly to changes in consumer behavior. You might have or you should have, a marketing strategic objective, but you can quickly review, assess, and adapt new tactics, initiatives, and approaches to accomplish your goal. That's a nimble company. I hope you are one. Okay, so this new customer, who are they? Well, we're marketing to a culturally diverse consumer. When I speak of cultural, I'm speaking of various people groups, such as age or generation, ethnicity, race, color, it's not the same as race necessarily, abilities, physical, mental abilities, national origin, birth language, religious affiliation, faith, spirituality. Does that play into our purchase decision? What about gender and gender preference? Each of these groups has their own set of values, paradigms, self-identities, and preferences. In better understanding individual values and preferences, we can best meet their needs as marketers. Remember, one of the first rules of marketing is know thy target customer, right? All right, so let's take a look at, gain a perspective of our cultural groups in our country. So you can see here from this pie chart that the majority of our country is still 55%. 15% of our marketplace are Hispanic Americans, 13% Black Americans, 5% Asian, 3% Native Americans or other. This is as of the 2010 census. If we look ahead, we can see that there's a bit of a shift here. We are going from a 15% group to a 30% Hispanic-oriented group. The Black American at 13%, and the Asians are growing as well, up 9%, with the white population at 48%. This is projection to 2050. Some people say that that will shift a little bit earlier than that. But that gives you a sense of where we're heading in the future. But now let's take a look at a shift in age groups. U.S. population by age. Now, I know this graph looks really busy, but let's just break it down. We've got 3 different time periods, 2000, 2010, and 2020. 2020 is in silver, 2010 is in red. On your left, the y-axis has a volume number of people, how many people. And here, your x-axis at the bottom is your ages, so under 5 years to 5 years. And each of these bars represents about a 5 to 10 year period. So anyway, let's just kind of break it down quickly. Let's take a look at 2010, which is the red bar. Who is our primary population here? Primary population here in 2010 is the baby boomers. These are the people 45 to 70 years old. But let's take a look at another group that I think is interesting. And here we see a group of millennials. These are the baby boomers' children. And they are between, currently they're like 18 to 25 right now. So they're still young. But this is kind of our current profile by age of the U.S. population from the last census. Let's take a look ahead. No, let's take a different look at age. Another way to look at distribution is by growth. You can see here that the baby boomers have experienced a 50% growth since 2000, since the last census. Or you can look at it this way, where the 45-year-olds have the greatest increase share of the population. They're at 40% of the population in this age group. So this is just a chart that shows, kind of emphasizes how many people in each of the age groups. And again, this is important as a marketer because you want to be aware of who your potential markets are and what your products and services, what values your products and services offer to various age groups. So let's take a look at the future here. All right, let's take a look at 2020, and that would be the silver bar. So in the silver bar, you will notice several groups that kind of jump up ahead of everyone else. Who? Well, yep, those baby boomers. They're shifting. They're getting older. They're now aged 55 to 75. And now remember, 2020, that's just 7 years away. So this is really who we should be paying attention to, right? Baby boomers age 55 to 75. They're still significant consumers, lots of good product opportunity there. What about the millennials? Well, guess what? They're going to now be between 25 and 40 years old, and they're prime purchasing, spending, and earning time period. So that's someone you want to keep an eye on. And we'll take a look also over here at the babies, the younger millennial babies. There is a lot of them coming up behind us, too. So anyway, it gives you an idea of who to be looking at as a marketer into the future. So currently, we have 6 different generations in the United States. We have what's called the GI generation. Some people refer to them as the World War II generation. We have the silent generation. I'll explain to you why they're called silent in just a little bit. But they come just behind the World War II or the GI generation. Then we've got the baby boomers, born between 1940 and 64. We have the GenXers, between 65 and 1979. Smaller group. Then again, a larger group, as we saw previously. The millennials were born between 1980 to 1995. And then there's a possible new generation. Some people will refer to Generation Z, though we really don't know and can't identify them as a generation yet because they're still too young. They were born starting in 1996. So let's break these guys down by age here. So 2014, that's next year, that's where we should be doing our marketing plans, right, in 2014 right now. So let's check. I'd like for you to take a look at this. I thought it would be easier for you to see by age how old the GI generation is. They're 88 plus, you know, the silent, the boomers, the Gen Xers, millennials. Here's the age group. Take a look at that and think about which age group is your primary customer. And then I want you to think about who else could be a good customer for you as we move forward. So keep in mind, think generationally as we move forward. And we'll be looking at marketing strategies that way too. Again, 2020, where are their ages now? The millennials are growing up. The Gen Xers are getting older. And the boomers, 56 to 74. So who are going to be your customers in the future? Who can you sell to and start establishing some loyalty now and keep them into the future? So let's break it down now by age group. Let's get into some detail. So if you think of the senior or mature market as a little old man with a cane, I want you to start thinking a little differently. I want you to think about the silent generation, and that's how I would present them to you. These are people who have attitude. They are not the same as the World War II generation, and there's not too many of them. They're about 14% of the United States population, 36 million of them, but they come from the in-between generation is one of the reasons why they're called silent. They're between the huge World War II GI generation and the huge baby boomer generation, why they got their name, silent. because they're kind of in between the two. But they're the product of the Great Depression. So they experienced the downside of the Great Depression, but also the sense of community that came out of everyone coming together and rallying around that cause. They experienced World War II at home. They experienced it during and also the post-war parades, the celebrations, the honor that their older siblings, aunts and uncles were experiencing coming back from the war. They also were part of the Cold War that we had way back then. You can look at your history books to get more detail, but as well as the happy days. So think 1950s. These kids, they had what was kind of the nirvana time of the United States when everything was just great here in the United States. So let's see, what kind of attitudes and values shaped them? And, you know, I wanted to mention, and let me go before I get much further, generations are established based on significant events and experiences that they shared as a group during their formative years of approximately from age 6, 7 to age 16 to 18. So these experiences shape their attitudes and values, which play into their purchase decisions. So their attitudes and values are, generally speaking, shaped from their formative years. So from their experiences here with the Depression and happy days and post-war, they have built kind of the world owes them. They've earned it. They've been the good little boys and girls all their life. So because of that, they're kind of out for adventure and fun. They do respect authority. They're team players. They're loyal. They're passionate about their grandkids, which is a great, if you look at all of those values, those are all ways that you as a marketer can think about them as a group and appeal to them, appeal to these values. Again, this woman was Rosie the Riveter. If she wasn't, she identified with her, and she has attitude now, and she will spend her money, and they've got money to spend. In fact, they say that they're spending their kids' inheritance, and they're fine with that. What kind of strategies can we market to the silent generation? Well, they have high standards, which means you need to have a good quality product and a quality experience. They're all about relationships. They'll develop and earn their trust, and that way you can establish a true, real relationship, a long-going customer relationship with them. Please be courteous to this group. Please address them as Mr. and Mrs. They've earned your respect in that way, and they expect it. They respond well to face-to-face experiences. They still like a handshake. They like to see you in the eye. They like to be treated as a person who you notice and you are aware of them. Don't hyper oversell your claim, though. They'll pick up on it. They are shrewd enough. They know about advertising. But appeal to their sense of economy. Now, again, because of their experience with the Great Depression, they know how the value of a dollar. They know what it means. So please appeal to their sense of economy. Give them a good value for what you're offering. Be prepared to provide references, testimonials, validate your claims. Counsel and recommend rather than sell. Again, a relationship. Your promotional materials, the designs and all should be kept simple, direct. Make sure you have at least 12 to 14-point font in your brochure materials. They will use the internet to research products and services, and they're also going to ask their kids. So make sure their kids are aware of your products and services. Direct mail and target radio ads still work for this group. So you can target them very well as long as you're simple, direct, clean. You don't oversell your claim, and you treat them in a relationship style. You can gain them as longtime customers. In fact, one thing about this generation that I really like to help people understand is that they're willing to go on an adventure. For example, this was the first group to go back onto air travel after 9/11, when the boomers and the younger, the genXers, were too afraid to get back on the planes and fly. These guys were taking vacations. So they love travel. They love experiences. And they know that they have a limited amount of time to enjoy and grab all the guests that they can. So if you have that type of product or service, you can appeal to this group. Now, well, heard about the baby boomers, right? Here they come. They're loud, they're boisterous, and everybody knows about them. There's about 85 million of them today, or about 35 to 40% of the adult population. They're the flower children of the 60s. They changed everything, the way that we market, the way that we do business. They come from the civil rights era, from the women's lib movement. Rock and roll started with this group. Flower power, Vietnam War was their war, and women's lib happened with this generation. So how were they shaped? Well, they're strongly independent, strongly individual. They are very strongly about equality. They're optimistic, very optimistic. They're also competitive with one another. They live to work. In fact, they feel that they're entitled to reward for work. And there's some self-identity many times is tied to their work. They like to spend their money. Let's buy a big house and go on an adventure rather than save. Who cares? We don't need to have a retirement age. We don't need to have an inheritance for our kids. We're going to go for the gusto of life. In fact, we're possibly empty nesters right now, and we're going to just live life as an adventure. But I want you to be aware with the baby boomers that there's a front-end boomer, as I call them, and back-end boomers. Because the baby boomers span 20 years worth of time, there's really kind of two distinct groups. I want you to make sure that you recognize them. The front-end boomers, think 1960s. They're very optimistic. They were the world's shakers and movers. Back-end boomers kind of got to come along for the ride and not quite as optimistic, a little more pragmatic, but they also love a good time and adventure as well. So think 1970s for the back-end boomers. All right, let's talk about the marketing strategies for baby boomers. First of all, sell the experience. They're all about experiencing life. So sell the experience, the benefits, the values of your product or service. Connect both intellectually and emotionally with them. Again, it's about feeling as well as intellect. Emphasize convenience. Don't try to sell them. Provide them with facts that they need to make an informed decision. Align with their vision. Think lifestyle. What's their dream? What's their ideal? What have they always wanted to do? Align with that. Present your message accordingly, helping them get there. What about time saving? If you have a way that you can save their time, and which they value greatly, then that would be a great way to deliver your service. A multi-medium strategy works well because with boomers, they will listen to the radio, they'll watch TV. Direct mail can still work some for them as well. You'll want to try different mediums. Also, magazines and internet and social media are really on the rise with this group as well. They respond well to traditional mediums as well. So don't exclude those at this point. Don't just go completely social media. Keep some traditional mediums as well. Don't focus on their age. It's about stage of life. So, for example, empty nesters. If you have a product that you want to market or a service, let's say a travel business or a hotel or a camping outfitter, you can provide a stage of life experience to the empty nesters, as an example. Some key words for this generation: convenience and purchasing experience. All about the experience. Keep that in mind when we're talking customer service as well. Look at your frontliners. How are they treating this group? Are they cordial? Are they respectful? Do they talk to them? Do they treat them as people, have a relationship, and enhance the experience that they have at your place of business? All right, what do we have next here? How about the genXers? All right, so these people are 33 to 49 years old. They come from the digital age. They pretty much stand on their own. They're different from the boomers and the millennials because of the result of the boomers and boomer generation as parents. So they're the children of divorced parents and career moms. They came during an era of parental permissiveness. The parents were busy doing their own things, and now these kids were kind of left on their own, and sure, we can do that. The product of media, video, computers, and digital explosions. And how did that shape them? They're independent, they're resourceful, they're self-sufficient. Technology is a way of life. Information is critical stressful for them. They're a bit uncertain about their own futures. They're disillusioned with about almost everything, from government to economy to business, etc. So you have to really work on earning their trust. They can be cynical. They're pragmatic. They're all about survival because that's what they've always had to be about. They're less traditional than the other generations. They do want balance of family life and work. They want to make their family life different than what they experience with kids. They're not good team players. They had to survive on their own. So they're typically not team players. They value their own family and their children extremely. They want to protect it. They want to do it better. So how do we market to them? Well, they want to be recognized and respected, but don't talk down to them. Find out how much they know, and then determine their motivation. So they will research the products and services. Just determine what they're really after. Don't try to give them all the features and benefits. Visuals interest them more than text. Again, they're a multi-screen experience. Engage these prospects with electronic media. They're used to the screen. They're still interested in direct marketing. It doesn't hit what they're after. But they do want a straightforward and honest approach. Offer some creative options. Help them to think through what they're really after. So you might want to offer them some options. Let them make their own educated decisions. Show your services are competitive. But you better prove it. You've got to back it up with some facts. You've got to back it up with testimonials. They appreciate style and retro products. And retro to them would be 70s to 80s, 70s childhood time. They're not uncomfortable with confrontation. They'll ask questions and want just the facts. They do not like hype or cute stories. So again, direct, honest, support what you're claiming, find out what they're after, treat them as a very highly educated, intelligent decision maker, and then you'll get these people for customers for life. What about the millennials now? All right, millennials. We hear a lot about them because there's a lot of them. They're 18 to 33 years old. Their big significant events that happened when they were kids, 9/11. It affected them. 9/11, the Iraq War, Hurricane Katrina, major events in these children's lives that shaped them. And depending on how the family and the parents reacted and responded to this will determine the kind of level of security from it. This is the helicopter parent generation, so they're very connected with their parents, unlike the genXers. They witnessed ethical and moral failures of trusted institutions and economic pillars. So how that shapes them? Well, they're optimistic, believe it or not. They're enthusiastic. They're ambitious. They live in an uncertain world, so they're going to have to make their own. They're going to have to make their own better world. They do esteem their parents and their grandparents, and they value their opinion. They are high academic achievers. That's important to them. They have to be the best. They have a high social awareness, and they're compassionate. They also have a strong sense of patriotism, volunteerism, that I think came from that 9/11, post-9/11 patriotic era that we experienced, where we all rallied around and behind our country, and we had all kinds of images accordingly. They have interest in their own spirituality, faith, religion. They're exploring right now, so there's opportunity for this group in addressing those needs. Some people have claimed that they have extended adolescence because of this helicopter parent generation, where the parents are so in touch with their kids and helping to take care of them and provide them. They can kind of stay kids for a little bit longer than others, perhaps. They're plugged in the media majority of the day. In fact, they have simultaneous multimedia as a norm, and I love the photograph because I think that captures it. If there's a screen, they've got it. If there's a way to wire it to their ears, they're wired. They're multitaskers. That's not surprising because of the multimedia. They're easily bored. So how do we appeal to them? Well, first of all, don't call them Gen Y or Echo Boomers. They want their own identity. They have a a multimedia high-tech approach, of course, will have to be the case because that's what they're used to. So include mobile, internet, television, internet music, games. They know all about gaming, and even some traditional online and, believe it or not, print publications. This group is picking up the newspaper again, and college newspapers actually are on the upswing. Appeal to their top priorities of becoming rich and famous, and a sense of entitlement. You know, they grew up, this is a group that grew up kind of in the Disney era, while the genXers were Sesame Street. These guys are the Disney era. How many of these kids became rich, famous, singers, dancers, actors, comedians? They, you know, this is their life. They think they are entitled to that. So HIP is mandatory. Include diversity in your messages as well, because they pride themselves on being very diversity inclusive. Message to them as a group or a clan, not an individual. Again, they always they tend to talk to each other and what are you doing and what's new and what's cool and what should I be into, which gives you an opportunity as a marketer to identify some peer influencers. So if you can utilize peer influencers and through social media, get your message out, that's going to be very effective with this group. Believe it or not, it's okay to include mom and dad in your sales approach. This generation still respects their opinions, and they like their opinions. They value them. Multi-generational messages are effective. In fact, one example with a client of mine was a retirement community. Now, the target customer was a silent generation aged person. But rather than marketing directly to them, since this was in a geographic location that skewed younger households with children, we decided to market to the grandchildren through their parents. So stay with me now. I'm talking 3 different generations now. The customers are the silent generation. We appeal to the grandkids. You want to be with grandma and their parents. You want your grandkids to be with grandma. You want grandma to be close to your kids and be part of their life. And that multi-generational message is very well. We hit goals ahead of target and have been quite successful with that because we identified multi-generational messages that were quite effective. With this group, you also want to use viral or buzz marketing. Now, what that is, it's kind of just a neat twist on word of mouth. It's utilizing the social media in spreading the word and letting, again, your peer influencers start telling people about how cool your product is. So we're talking stories about your product or service. We're talking about cool things that happen with your product or service, not just a straight-out ad message. Don't talk down to them. They're sharp kids. Time is precious. So you want to offer convenience. You want to offer time savings. You want to promote your community service, known as cause marketing. So how are you making this a better world for the millennials? They really have a low appreciation of logos, which I think kind of goes back to that cause marketing. They want to make sure that they're spending their dollars or voting with their dollars to companies that are doing something good with that. They're making a difference in the world. So, you know, the whole logo thing's just not really what they're into. You know, think iProducts. Think of Mac products. Low logos, not a big deal to them. As conversely with the genXers, who are all about brands. So some differences between those 2 generations. So just kind of in summary with multi-generational marketing, I want you to consider the sandwich generation, which is a term you should know. These are the baby boomers who are caught between caring for their parents, their older parents, the silent generation, and their children, who are generally the millennials, the sandwich generation. If you can appeal to them in their lifestyle, depending on if they have young kids still at home or empty nests, they will relate to that. Keep in mind, and primarily because of our economy, we have more multi-generational households now. So as you're sending your message to a household, whether it's by television, whether it's by direct mail, whether it's signage, billboards, however, social media, keep in mind that there might be multi-generations that would be able to respond from the same household. What about cross-generational strategies? Well, I told you my example with the retirement community. But the millennials, the boomers, the silents, they all like to interact. Some other considerations would be, I want you to think of products and services that you provide. Do they appeal to multiple age groups? If so, can you utilize that interconnectivity? So traditionally, you may have been serving the baby boomers, but now you're seeing the millennials might offer an opportunity with a few tweaks or changes to the delivery of your message, maybe some packaging changes. So keep that in mind. I really feel strongly that generational marketing is a great strategy in this new economy. So let's move on now to cultural groups. Marketing to cultural diversity. Well, most of us like to be communicated with in a way that connects with who we are, our sense of self-identity. But it doesn't really matter our race or our skin color or our ability. What we want is that you, the company who is marketing or communicating to us, understands us. So get to know and understand unique qualities about cultural groups so that you can value their preferences and more effectively communicate to them. All right, so what's this look like? Well, again, I'm going to remind you that the largest growth is going to come from the Hispanic market and from the Asian market. That's our areas of growth. Okay. So let's look at the African-American market. In 2012, the black population was 44.5 million, or 14% of the U.S. economy, or population. Their current buying power is $1 trillion, forecasted to reach $1.3 trillion in just a few years. Approximately 38% of the black households earn between $35 and $100K annually. Black women comprise 71% of black graduate students, highly educated. Household median now is still less than $35K. And I don't want to paint a total rosy picture here because this community has been hit the hardest economically. So keep that in mind too. So depending again on your product or service, you'll want to address this group directly in understanding their value system. So how does this, what kind of consumer behavior patterns can we see here in this group? Well, they're more aggressive consumers of media. They watch more television than the average American. They purchase more ethnic beauty and grooming products, clothing, shoes, phone services, technology than the average. They spend more than twice the time at personal hosted websites than any other group. Again, another way to maybe establish a sense of community, establish a rapport, a relationship with this group. The majority of black women professionals choose to remain single with no children. So that's just I threw that in there because I thought it would be of interest as you're marketing, if that is a target market for you or potential market, to be aware of that situation. They also tend to spend rather than save money. And again, I have various sources here on this. So what are some marketing strategies that we can consider or special? One is to appeal to the sense of success and achievement. Use social media to target, engage, and inform black consumers. Television remains the primary medium. Blacks talk and text more than any other race. So mobile strategy, I would say, is a must. Infuse black music into the message delivery. It's going to be more emotionally impacting. Endorsement or support by successful, popular black Americans, either historical or contemporary, will also help provide some validity to your product and to your claim. Involve your brand in urban black communities and make this real. Don't just have a banner somewhere or a sign somewhere, but become involved in communities. They will trust those that they know. And this is generally true across most cultural groups. Appeal to their sense of style, and I'm going to give you an example here. This photograph right here is an ad from Ford. Ford Fiesta's Inspired by Color campaign. Now, this is a campaign that they ran predominantly on social media. So they relied on buzz marketing, viral marketing. And they had a contest, and they awarded a prize of a free car to people who provided an essay and why, I'm inspired by color. And it was a whole theme, a whole campaign, very successful for them. Another successful campaign was Black is Beautiful, which was the Dove Soap Company. Most of us are familiar with Dove Soap's campaign of beautiful and redefining beautiful. Well, they were very targeted to the Black African-American community, and Black is Beautiful, and they had the community themselves and various women define what beauty meant to them. And that was also another very successful campaign. All right, so in 2050, where's our growth coming from? The Hispanic and the Asians. So let's take a look at them more specifically. The Hispanic market, who is the Hispanic market, and what does Hispanic come from? So Hispanic's an umbrella term that's covering various people groups who share Spanish as a common native language. It's kind of debates in the making, but that's kind of the general definition of Hispanic, and it covers lots of different people groups. So let's take a look at them. They refer to people who are Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin. So this is a very diverse group of people, and they look different. Not all Hispanics look the same, regardless of what your own personal experience is. So keep in mind it's a very diverse group of people under one umbrella. So let's take a look at some quick facts. More than 50 million in the United States as of the last census, which is 16% of the population, or a 46% increase since 2000. They're growing at a rate 6 times faster than non-Hispanics. And only about 5% are undocumented. So though they get a lot of press, that's not the majority of the Hispanic population in the U.S. They are young. They're 46% of them are under age 25. They're young because 1 in 3 births are Hispanic. Now, it's 1 in 3 births in the United States, where 75% of Hispanics are between age 18 and 49. 70% speak Spanish or are bilingual, and they prefer Spanish. Market consumers. Okay, their buying power, $862 billion to $1.3 trillion in buying power, which is the second largest after white non-Hispanics. They're also ahead of the buying power of the African Americans and greater than the population of Canada. Just to give you some perspective there. Their market penetration, Hispanic households in the 100K plus category grew more than twice as much as non-Hispanic growth in this category. Income, 5 million Hispanics earn greater than 100K household income. So again, another group that is aspiring to achieve, to be successful, to grow economically. So what is the buying habit? Well, they outspend non-Hispanic consumers by 2 to 1. They are loyal. They're brand conscious. Unlike the general market, if you can establish a strong brand ID with this group, they're likely to stay loyal, and they will let others know as well. They're willing to pay more for a quality product. They'll also purchase from those who know them. By knowing them, that means that you've taken the time to relate to them fully. 50% prefer Spanish language media. Young growing families with growing needs, and family is an important quality for them. All right, so that was a quick review of the Hispanic American. Now let's take a look at the Asian American market. Again, Asian American is an umbrella term for a wide variety of Asian cultures, as diverse as Chinese, Indian, and Philippine. Now, while the growth from the Hispanic market is coming primarily from births in the U.S., the Asian market is growing based on immigration. So there's 18 million Asian Americans here, which is 5.6% of our population. There's 20 subgroups, all comprised under Asian Americans. Some, it can go from 20 to 40 depending on how people are defining it. But the census identifies 20, including Chinese, Filipino, Indian, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese. So there's quite a diverse group here. So keep that in mind as you're marketing. Know who your audience is, who your specific market is. They are the fastest growing multicultural group in the United States, 50% increase in 2000, primarily from immigration. They're younger families than the average U.S. Their current buying power is $718 billion, projected to $1 trillion in 5 years for a smaller number of people. They are higher educated than the general population. 50% of Asian Hispanics over the age of 25 have completed college, so they're a highly educated group. 49% of employed Asians work in management. They're from highly educated. They're in professional roles, related occupations, financial managers, engineers, teachers, nurses, physicians, etc. Their household income is $67,000, the highest of any minority group. 28% earn more than 100K household income. So basic things to know about the Asian American market: educated, professional, high income, family-oriented, traditional values. So how do we market to them? Well, they're family-oriented, includes, so when we say family for the Asian American, that includes extended family. Their elder family members are respected and consulted regularly and part of the family. There's high pressure to succeed. They are predominantly have a saving philosophy versus a spending philosophy. Now, the Hispanic Americans, African Americans, more spenders. Asians tend to save a little bit more. 77% of the Asian Americans speak a language other than English at home, which again, that speaks to the immigrant, so the more recent person from another country in our country here. Ethnicity is a significant part of the Asian American identity. Again, remember that there's many subgroups, so make sure you're identifying the right people with the right message. Talk about consumer behavior. They shop more often, but are less likely to use a shopping list, so they'll respond more to in-store deals. So that might be a consideration for your business. Consumers still prefer to look for in-language and or in-culture media to stay on top of news and current events. Top media preferences are digital and then print. 70% smartphone penetration. So Asian Americans have the highest usage of any group of smartphones. They spend more time on internet websites than the average as well. So let's take a look now at media. Are you adapting to the ways your prospect is getting his or her information? I just gave you lots of information, and this will be available later on, so you can go back and review this. I'm going through a lot of detail quickly. But I want to make sure that you think about and are aware of all the different value systems, buying habits, behaviors. And your opportunity here is to adapt to the ways your prospect is getting his or her information. And then are you making it easy for them to choose you? All right, what does that mean then? So I want to spend just a little bit of time here talking about Transcultural Creative. So we're talking about getting to know your target audience. Again, Marketing 101, right? We've got to know the individuals within the group that we're marketing to. We can no longer, in our new economy, use one marketing message across the board. We have lots of different mediums now. We have lots of different ways to make sure that we are targeting cultural groups. The Transcultural Creative has to do with marketing creative, and it is the creative adaptation of marketing, sales, and advertising copy, which adapts your brand's attributes in a culturally relevant manner to reach the target market at an emotionally and intellectual level. Savvy marketers know that we've got to appeal to emotion. We make, as consumers, we make emotional purchases. We might think we're making an intellectual decision, but really it's coming out of a state of emotion. So the more relevant you as a marketer can be to each multicultural group you're trying to attract to your product, your service, your brand, the more effective and successful you will be. Not simply about translating current marketing materials into another language. You must get to know and understand their values and emotional drivers. So what are some of these emotional drivers? Well, let's look at some of their values here. Lots of different pictures because there's lots of different values. But think in terms of cultural identity and language preference. Think about their family or support system, faith, religious, spiritual beliefs, holidays, observances. You don't want to have a sale on a day that might be a religious observance day for your customer. What about music, food, social traditions? If you can incorporate these into your messages, you'll be more effective if it's done well and correctly. What about attire? What about icons? Proper use or misuse? You've got to be careful. Their aspirations. How do they measure success? Not everyone measures success in the same way. Success might mean a happy, healthy family. Success might mean a Ferrari. Two different groups, two different measures. Digital media. I really love and appreciate this quote by Adam Kleinberg in Ad Age, Advertising Age. Digital media, here's another thing that affects us, has dramatically increased the number of assets brands need to create. We used to shoot a TV spot and some print ads and we were done. Today, in this new economy, we need dozens, if not hundreds, of banner ads, web pages, web videos, apps, emails, tweets, Facebook posts, Instagram signs, Snapchat content, not to mention some sort of strategy behind each of them. So I present that to you because I think that kind of defines our new economy. We've got so many new mediums. We have so many new ways of communicating, and we've got a lot of new cultural groups, generational groups, that each has their value system and each wants to be heard, respected, understood, and communicated with in their own way. So, in summary, I want you to think multicultural minority groups are growing in size, spending power, and influence faster than traditional markets. Companies who take time to get to know their cultural markets will win loyal customers and employees. When a marketing message is culturally relevant, and I stated that definition, and incorporates various core values, it will be effective and successful. Companies marketing in multi-level platforms utilizing relevant technologies will win the new consumer. So that concludes my presentation. So at this point, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, Martha, I think that ends our presentation. Our appreciation to you today on conducting this webinar for us. Please join us next week. We actually have a webinar coming up on October 31st at 1 p.m. And you will look for that information in your email. And that concludes today. Thank you for joining us.